Hello, Brentwood, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey there, folks, gather round the sound. Brentwood Joe's podcast where change is found. What's going on in a little town? Let's lift each other up, let's break it down. Is it a yard sale or a friend in need? Let's lend a helping hand, plant that good seed.
This week we will be taking our usual look at the select board meeting. Then we are going to talk about something we found interesting and we hope you do as well. We would love to hear from you. You can leave comments directly on the podcast. You can also leave comments on YouTube. We also have the Facebook page where you can interact with us. Your feedback is invaluable. If you want to hear more on a subject we have discussed, or if there is a subject we haven't discussed that you would like us to bring up, please let us know. Get us those shout outs. We would love to recognize anyone who you feel should be recognized for any reason, from retirement to losing that first tooth. No accomplishment or milestone is too small. We welcome them all and look forward to them. With that being said, let's get right into the select board meeting from October 14th. First on the docket was routine financial business. The payroll and register for the week ending October 11th, 2025. Payroll totaled $42,182. Payroll taxes were $10,671. And accounts payable came to $24,811. No payments that week went to the school cooperative or the retirement system. A motion to accept the payroll and register was made, seconded, and passed unanimously, a short procedural vote, but one that keeps town operations moving. With the housekeeping out of the way, the chair explained the plan for public comment. Because the agenda was full and there was a substantial non-public session later, public comment would be taken briefly at the start and again at the end. Remarks were limited to 2 minutes per person to keep the meeting moving. The first public speaker was Mark Wilson of 56 High Road. Mark is trying to sell the house he's lived in for 36 years. In a routine title and listing review, his real estate agent found discrepancies between deeded acreage and the tax map. Those were corrected, but a bigger zoning issue surfaced. The tax map listed the property as a two-family with an in-law unit. Mark says Brentwood zoning doesn't allow duplexes in that district, so he came to the board for guidance. Mark met with Glenn, and he acknowledged that the permits were pulled for it. He didn't want to put words in his mouth, but said he implied perhaps they shouldn't have been back then, but they were. The real estate agent isn't comfortable listing it until they get confirmation. The zoning administrator, Mark Kennedy, and town staff walked the board through the file. There's a complex permit history. A special exception for an ADU, or in-law apartment, appears in the records from around 1991. Multiple building permits followed, and a large addition shows up in the 1990s permit set. At various points, the property has been assessed as a two-family with an in-law unit, effectively 3 kitchens, though Mark says it was only ever occupied by family, not rented commercially. Mark Kennedy then said, "When we get variances that are a special exception, that would be prior to it being built. You can't issue one after." The board discussed options. One path is to treat the situation as a non-conforming use that's been grandfathered because of prior approvals and long-standing usage. Another path would be formalization through the Zoning Board of Adjustment, but the board was cautious about granting retroactive exceptions. As one member put it, they didn't want to overstep their authority by retroactively approving something that should never have been under current zoning rules without careful review. The practical next steps were straightforward. The board asked Mark to provide a written letter of intent stating how he plans to sell the property. Staff committed to consult assessing and the zoning administrator, and, if needed, town council. The board voted to continue the hearing to the next meeting so those pieces could be gathered. Mark emphasized urgency. He's been preparing the house for sale and hoped the matter wouldn't drag, and the board agreed to expedite the research. If you're selling an older home in town, this is a strong reminder. Get deeds, permits, and tax cards squared away early. Moving on to budgets. The cemetery trustees presented their fiscal year 2026 budget. Jim Hajar outlined modest changes, a 3% recommended wage increase for the superintendent, a slight electricity increase from $300 to $350 to reflect rising rates and return to normal use after drought, and a request to increase land maintenance from $1,000 to $2,000. The trustees explained the extra maintenance partly reflects the township taking on stewardship of the Brentwood Poor Farm Cemetery off Deer Hill Road, newly declared an abandoned cemetery and now a town responsibility. First-year work will include mapping it into GIS, adding a bronze plaque, and installing simple delineation like posts and chain. Jim said, "We're going to pick up a new cemetery. We'll be working this year to get it officially put on the GIS map. We'll probably end up putting a delineation. We would do the work ourselves, materials from the maintenance line." Board members asked for quotations for the materials and suggested a middle ground. Restore some funding but constrain the ask. The trustees agreed to seek exact quotes. The board approved a compromise funding level that aimed to balance stewardship needs and fiscal prudence. This is a good example of local government matching small line item requests to specific tasks, not glamorous, but essential. Next, the Budget Committee chair raised an item about professional training. The budget previously included $65 for training per year, but the NH Municipal Association's Budget and Finance Workshop costs $115 per person. The board agreed it was reasonable to fund at least 2 attendees, adjusting the line to $230 to cover 2 participants. Investing in training helps elected officials handle complex municipal finance, a small but valuable line item. The new code enforcement officer, Chuck, explained his budget. Key drivers included salary adjustments tied to previously discussed pay staging, continuing education to maintain certifications, and code books. Chuck explained that code updates come on a 3-year cycle. The town adopted the 2021 code, and if the state adopts the 2024 International Building Code, the town will need new volumes, a potential $1,000 cost. He's also reviewing fee schedules, noting Brentwood's permit fees are on the low end compared to neighboring towns and may warrant adjustment to recover departmental costs. Board members emphasized 2 administrative points: document compensation arrangements in writing rather than rely on verbal agreements, and add a uniform allowance so staff are identified in the field. A modest clothing line, 2 embroidered polo shirts, was discussed and included. The board approved the budget with 1 no vote from a member concerned about ambiguous staged compensation language. If you're an employee of the town, this is a reminder. Written terms protect both staff and the town. Next up was Julie, the finance director. Julie reviewed outstanding bonds and noted that while conservation may request another bond for land acquisition, timing matters. If a bond is approved and issued late in the year, payments might not begin until the following fiscal year. That scheduling nuance affects budget planning and how payments interact with the state's tax cap. The board approved the debt service lines as presented, with a minor rounding adjustment. The board then discussed a generous donation, more than 3 acres on South Road, from Bruce Stevens. The Conservation Commission recommended due diligence before acceptance, a Phase 1 environmental site assessment estimated at $3,000, and a retracement survey to mark boundaries, estimated at $6,400. The board agreed that basic environmental and boundary work was prudent before taking ownership. A motion to fund the combined $9,400 from an expenditure offset line was made and approved, with 1 no vote. Accepting land is a gift and a responsibility, so spending a bit up front to confirm boundaries and contamination status is smart stewardship. A few committee updates rounded out the meeting.
This October, our hearts beat pink for the mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends who've faced breast cancer with courage that takes your breath away. Breast Cancer Awareness Month isn't just about a color, it's about a cause. It's about standing shoulder to shoulder, saying we see you, we support you, and we're fighting with you. So this month, wear that pink ribbon loud and proud. Schedule your screenings. Tell your loved ones to do the same. Every conversation, every reminder, every act of love could save a life. Together, we are stronger than cancer. And this October, let's make sure the world feels that strength.
A note about a UNH cooperative extension outreach idea to network nearby towns on conservation issues, Recreation Commission reminders, and work by the Health Insurance Subcommittee on new rates. Staff also reminded the board that the CPA will be in on Thursday before auditors arrive next week. Public comment produced some lively points. Liz Faria urged abolishing the Friends of the Library, claiming the volunteer group had become unwelcoming and raised concerns about books and censorship in the Friends bookstore. She also urged board members to attend the regional school district's budget hearing on October 20th at Exeter High School, arguing the school budget decisions will strongly affect Brentwood's tax bill. Jim Hajar then asked about YouTube transcripts. The auto-generated transcript feature had been off for the last meeting, and he urged staff to restore it for public access. That's a practical suggestion. Transcripts improve transparency and accessibility. Before adjourning, the board took a roll call vote to enter non-public session for personnel and reputational matters. The chair also shared a personal update. Select Board member Andy Artemovich was absent because his wife Louise had a medical issue. The board wished her a speedy recovery. We also wish Andy's wife a speedy recovery and ask that you include them in your prayers. With that, the public session wrapped. So what's the takeaway from this meeting? A few clear themes. Records and history matter. The Wilson property issue underlines how decades-old permits and paperwork, or the lack of clear documentation, can complicate real estate transactions. If you own an older property, get deeds, permits, and assessor records in order early. Small line items have real impact. Cemetery maintenance, training for volunteer boards, and a couple of new code books. These aren't flashy, but they're the nuts and bolts of the town. Due diligence on land matters. Before accepting donated land, the town wisely invests a few $1,000s to confirm boundaries and environmental status. That wraps up the select board meeting. Now let's talk about something a little different that a lot of us probably take for granted. Daylight saving time. We're pulling the curtains back on a twice-yearly ritual that affects our clocks, our sleep, and even how our town operates. Daylight saving time. Where did it come from? Does it help or hurt? And should we keep changing the clocks twice a year or do away with daylight saving time once and for all? We'll walk through the history, the arguments for and against, practical impacts on communities like Brentwood, and what alternatives are realistic. First, what exactly is daylight saving time? Daylight saving time, note the singular, is the practice of setting clocks forward by 1 hour in the spring forward, to shift daylight from morning to evening, and setting them back an hour in the fall back to return to standard time. Now the origins, and it's a bit messier than the neat farmers wanted more light story you might have heard. The modern idea of shifting clocks traces to several inventors and reformers. In 1895, New Zealand entomologist George Hudson proposed a 2-hour daylight shift so he could have more after-work daylight for insect collecting. Independently, in 1907, British builder William Willett campaigned for moving the clocks forward in summer to give people more evening light for recreation. Willett even published a pamphlet and lobbied Parliament, but his campaign predated World War I. The first large-scale adoption came during wartime. Germany and Austria introduced daylight saving in 1916 to conserve coal during World War I. Other European countries and the U.S. followed. The U.S. adopted daylight saving during World War I and again during World War II for similar energy and wartime efficiency reasons. After the wars, many places reverted to standard time, and later, in the 1970s energy crisis, daylight saving resurfaced as a policy tool. The U.S. standardized daylight saving nationally with the Uniform Time Act of 1966, though states can exempt themselves, Arizona and Hawaii do. The pattern we know now, spring forward, fall back, is a product of that 20th century history, mixing wartime urgency, energy policy, and convenience. So why do supporters like daylight saving time? There are a few common arguments. More evening daylight for leisure and retail. Extended evening light after work hours encourages outdoor activity, boosts restaurants and shops, and supports community events. For a town like Brentwood, longer summer evenings can mean more time at the ball field, barbecues, or walking local trails after work. Perceived energy savings. The original argument was reduced lighting demand in the evening. Some studies show small reductions in residential lighting use, though the effect is smaller today because heating, cooling, and electronics matter more to overall energy use. Public safety benefits. A handful of studies suggest fewer traffic fatalities in the evening during daylight saving months because more daylight reduces certain crash types. However, this benefit can be offset by increased morning crashes immediately after the spring shift when it's darker in the morning. Economic activity. Some businesses, retail, tourism, recreation, see measurable gains from extended evening light. That can be important in towns that host events, summer markets, or evening recreation leagues. But critics raise strong counter-arguments. Let's walk through the negatives. Health costs from the clock shifts. The hour change in spring disrupts sleep cycles. Medical studies link the spring transition to short-term increases in heart attacks, strokes, and workplace injuries in the days following the shift. Even small circadian disruption accumulates. People report worse sleep quality and tiredness. Limited net energy savings. Modern energy use has changed since the early 20th century. Heating and cooling dominate consumption in many regions. Studies show the net energy savings from daylight saving are marginal or even negative in some locales. Any reduction in evening lighting can be offset by higher heating needs in the darker mornings or increased use of air conditioning during extended warm evenings. Safety and productivity hits in the short term. The Monday after the spring shift often shows higher rates of workplace accidents and reduced productivity due to sleep loss. School children heading to school on darker mornings can be a safety concern in winter months if regions shift too much daylight to evenings. Complexity and cost. Changing clocks twice a year imposes tiny but real costs. Scheduling issues across time zones, updates to tech systems, and the administrative friction for businesses and public services. For farmers in some industries, the clock change can be a nuisance rather than a benefit. The old farmers love daylight saving time trope is inaccurate. Many agricultural activities follow sunlight rather than the clock. Uneven effects by latitude. The practical benefits of daylight saving vary with latitude. In northern states with long winter nights and long summer days, shifting 1 hour is a small marginal change. In more southern regions, impacts differ. For Brentwood in southern New Hampshire, time shifts change the balance between darker winter mornings and lighter summer evenings. The trade-offs are specific to our climate and daylight patterns. So, what do the studies say overall? The evidence is mixed and context dependent. Peer-reviewed research does show modest benefits in some areas. Small evening traffic safety improvements, small retail gains, and measurable short-term health harms immediately after the shift. The energy savings question is the most contested. Older studies suggested notable savings. Newer analyses accounting for modern heating, cooling, and behavioral changes find negligible or inconsistent savings. That's one reason many policymakers are rethinking whether the twice-yearly change is still sensible. What about doing away with daylight saving time altogether? There are two common alternatives. Stay on permanent standard time year-round, no clock changes, but the daylight schedule stays on standard time. This means darker evenings in summer, but lighter mornings in winter compared to permanent daylight saving time. Stay on permanent daylight saving, also called permanent summertime, year-round, no clock changes, but clocks stay an hour ahead. This gives lighter evenings year-round at the cost of darker winter mornings. Each choice has pros and cons. Most medical and circadian experts favor permanent standard time if the goal is public health, because standard time aligns better with solar time and human circadian rhythms. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine and many sleep researchers argue against permanent daylight saving because extended winter dark mornings can worsen health outcomes and make school mornings harder for children. Policy complexity also matters. In the United States, only Congress can adopt permanent daylight saving nationwide. States can opt out and stay on standard time. Arizona and Hawaii did. That federal constraint means piecemeal state action toward permanent daylight saving can cause time zone fragmentation unless Congress acts. The 2018 Sunshine Protection Act proposed making daylight saving permanent nationwide, and some advocacy continues, but as of now, federal action has not passed. What about international examples? Several countries have abandoned seasonal clock changes. Russia moved to permanent standard time and then experimented with permanent daylight saving before reversing course. The European Union has debated ending seasonal changes and left the decision to member states, but implementation stalled because neighbors needed coordination. Countries near the equator often don't use daylight saving time at all because their day length doesn't vary much. Those international choices show politics, geography, and coordination matter. You can't decide in isolation without affecting commerce, travel, and communications with neighbors. Here are some practical takeaways. If you prioritize community evening activities, tourism, and retail events, you might favor permanent daylight saving. Evening recreation can be a real town asset. If you prioritize public health, school schedules, and minimizing circadian disruption, you should favor standard time year-round. If your concern is technical simplicity and reduced administrative friction, you'll like abolishing the twice-yearly change regardless of which permanent time you choose. Less clock fiddling means fewer errors. Coordination matters. New Hampshire is part of a regional economy and public safety systems connected to Massachusetts, Maine, and the broader Northeast. Any state or local change needs regional coordination to avoid confusing travel, broadcasting, and commerce. Finally, what do other towns and experts recommend? The mainstream medical view is cautious. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine and many circadian researchers recommend ending the twice-yearly clock shift and favor permanent standard time for health reasons. Many business groups and some retailers favor permanent daylight saving time because of evening commerce benefits. Ultimately, the decision is political and regional, and one-size-fits-all answers are unlikely. I am curious how you all feel about it. If you found this interesting or have an opinion, we'd love to hear it. Please drop us a comment on Facebook or directly on the podcast. If you listen on YouTube, please be sure to like and follow us. We would greatly appreciate it.
Brentwood Joe's Town Hall podcast is produced and brought to you by Cryout Media Creations, your go-to team for AI audio and video magic. From promotional spots to custom voiceovers, marketing, and entertainment, we make your ideas come alive. Visit cryoutmediacreations.com and tell us about your vision.
We are still under very dry conditions. Don't forget we have an outdoor fire ban in effect. Hopefully we will get some rain soon to help with the drought conditions over the entire state. Also keep in mind all the local food banks and charities that help out those in need. The holidays are upon us. Let's make them special for everyone. On Saturday, October 25th, the library will be hosting the Pumpkin Festival from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the amphitheater. There will be pumpkins to decorate, games to play, and a bake sale at this family event. The basement bookstore will also be open. If you would like to donate baked goods, please label if they are nut-free and/or gluten-free. They may be dropped off at the library Friday during regular hours or Saturday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. As always, let's all show our appreciation for our first responders and military. They can never hear enough how much we appreciate all they do to keep us free and safe. So if you see them, be sure to offer a handshake and some kind words. They really deserve it. Till next time, we hope you all stay healthy and happy. Have a great week, Brentwood.
Brentwood Joe's podcast. It's your chance to be a part of the change. Oh, can't you see? It's a playful journey